Hi, so we are back with part two of the Wake Up Wagons Q&A with Tamer from Fueled by Macros. So
Hello.
thank you very much for coming back on because we got so many questions. It was really difficult to get through them all. So the ones today I think are a little bit more based around general public. The first episode was more about stuff to do with sports nutrition. And I think today we're going to cover a little bit more about some general things that are relative to everybody. The first thing is I think this is a great question because it's something that people often find quite difficult to understand, and it's again one that's been in the media a lot. So is breakfast essential? Because this person that asked the question says she finds it very hard to eat before 11 o'clock. So what are your views on that?
Okay, and I think there's a lot of confusion around this as well because of the media attention around fasting and intermittent fasting in particular. So is it essential? No. When it comes to reaching your goals in terms of body weight, it is going to be down to overall calories for the day, really. However, I do like to look deeper into these things, and I would question what's happening digestively with this person if they don't want to eat before 11. So if this was my client, I would maybe looking into different health markers, as I say, their digestion, what are their bowel movements like?
Yeah.
What are they eating at night? Before
I was going to say that as well. Like, are they eating very late at night that then is stopping them being hungry when they wake up?
Yeah, some people have this habit of like starving themselves all day and then having a massive meal at night, and just quite frankly still being full first thing in the morning. I'd also wonder, how well they're sleeping and recovering, really looking into all of these things. So I definitely would delve a little bit deeper, but for a lot of cases with the general population, I do feel it is good to have some regularity with meals. And I would say that if you struggle to have breakfast, just to make sure that you're kind of keeping your blood sugars on a nice kind of even keel, and you're not kind of suddenly overloading your digestive system with starving and then having a massive meal.
Yeah.
If you're not hungry, simply break fast with a bit of protein. Just even if it's a shake, have a little protein shake, and then a couple of hours later, if you're hungry, have a proper meal.
Yeah.
But what's good about that is because there's no carbs, there's no insulin spike, and it's not really overloading your gut.
Yeah.
So,
and I think also is sometimes people think that breakfast has to be something as soon as you get up. It might be that it's just your first meal of the day, and so then you would maybe structure your other meals around that. So if your first meal is I know sometimes that I'll get up and I'll get the kids ready and I get them all breakfast, I get them to school, I then get back and I walk the dog, and then I go drive to work, and it's 10 o'clock when I get to work, and I might then have my breakfast because I've been running around like a lunatic all morning and haven't actually managed to feed myself because I've been thinking about everybody else. And again, that is my first meal of the day, and I wouldn't then look at having my lunch at midday. I would probably have my lunch around 2 or 3 o'clock because that's a good gap to have between my meals. So it's, if the breakfast is later on, then possibly then that would be okay. It depends what time this person gets up as well. If they don't get up until 9, to have breakfast at 11 is quite reasonable, I would have thought. But without and then like you schedule your meals throughout that, so it might just be that is the case. But if it is more that, like you were saying, you getting up at 7 o'clock, fasting all morning, and then having a massive lunch and almost skipping breakfast, then that's different, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of chronic dieters have got into that habitually as well, with trying to reduce their eating window throughout the day.
Yeah.
They've got limited calories. But I just want to revert really quickly to something interesting that you just said about like your daily routine.
Yeah.
And eating later on in the day. And actually, when you start to look a little bit into circadian rhythms, what's really important for us to do when we wake is to get natural light, daylight, because that basically wakes up our internal body clock. And when that happens, that gets all of our biological processes ticking, including our digestion.
So it makes sense that walking the children to school and taking the dog for a walk first and then eating would be feel more natural.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes, you know, when you wake up first thing in the morning, your body's just not quite woken up yet. Even though you have, your body hasn't caught up.
Oh no, I know that feeling very much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm up at 6 most mornings, but I don't think I'm a human until about 11.
Yeah, and I suppose also the way things are at the moment with the lockdowns and all of that is that I think I said on the last one, moving from my bed across the room to my sofa to then sit at my laptop and wander to the kitchen to make a cup of coffee isn't really waking myself up.
Yeah.
And so and it's mornings like that sometimes I would potentially almost by accident sometimes have breakfast a lot later because I just get so engrossed in what I'm doing. I'm like, get up, do the work, get before the kids need to do homeschool, and then suddenly you've lost 2 hours or whatever, and you think, okay, I should have maybe eaten by now.
Yeah.
I think that, and in the winter obviously it's a bit darker and
it is. Yeah. I think everyone's out of whack completely because of lockdown. And this is why circadian rhythms are especially important as well, because we maybe do have a little less daylight exposure. We're indoors a lot more. We're not doing the school run. So trying to have like good habits in place is definitely beneficial. Yeah. And I think the only thing I would just add to this is, although we are talking more general population, in the realms of, can't get my words out today, strength sports, that's what I was looking for. If this person who asked the question is in strength sports, I would definitely say to not go into training for that in a fasted state. Yeah. And I think you would...
I definitely agree with that.
Agree. Yeah.
I have had that conversation with clients before when they start flagging 15 minutes into a session and I wonder what's wrong, and it's because they haven't eaten that day. And you're like, oh, come on, it's simple, feel your body.
Yeah. So even if you're not hungry, get something light in that's calorie dense, that's going to fuel a workout, because your body needs those stores to feed from.
And it's just awkward when your clients start passing out on you and there's forms to fill out, and it makes my life difficult. So let's not do that.
No.
Okay, that kind of leads us on to the next one a little bit about calories. So what are your thoughts on saving up calories for the weekend? And if you might do this, which macro would you reduce? I think I posted something that might cover this a little bit as well on the group the other day about refeed days, which might be more as something you could do rather than saving up. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, also I think someone asked the question, which kind of, if I could just highlight it because it's going to tie into my answer for this.
Yeah.
Someone else asked, is it worth having different calorie/macro amounts for training and non-training days?
Yeah, this is actually the next question, so we could do this in one if you want.
Yeah, I think so, because it all kind of ties in together. So I'm not, do we need to save calories for the weekend? It depends on the individual and what your lifestyle is. I'm not necessarily a fan of that whole saving up calories attitude, but I am an advocate for undulating calories.
Mm-hmm.
So I think definitely one thing that people need to get into their headspace is that there is no magic number. Whatever your target is, if you've done your calculations and you're tracking calories, for example, and your calorie target is 2,000 calories for the day, that is not a magic number.
Yeah.
Because
There's
every
so many variants as well, aren't there?
yes,
Like on
every,
food labels, I think when you look into the science behind food labels, or I say the science behind food labels, that there can be up to, I think, a 20% variance or something like that, which is still allowed with it for it to be, um, to be okay.
yeah,
That's a lot.
yeah,
So,
it is a lot. Yeah, and in the terms of like building, bikini prep, you're into a whole world of hurt there if you're trying to manipulate every little
yeah.
calorie.
And how do and calculating what you lose, what you're using as well.
Yeah,
I've got a Fitbit. It tells me what it thinks I've been using that day. How accurate it is, I don't know. Probably not very. But
no,
you've got with those things a base, haven't you, to kind of work from, and you can then see what I suppose recording things is always good, because then you can see how close you're getting. If you're hitting all these things on your app every day and you're not losing weight, so obviously not quite right there. So
yeah,
you've got to make adjustments.
yeah. You have to take a little bit of a fluid approach and not be so number fixated,
Mm.
because your energy expenditure, as you were just saying, also differs day to day. We are not robots.
Mm.
So we may use more calories one day to even like 2 sedentary days could look very different in terms of calorie expenditure.
Mm.
And that could just be neat, non-exercise activity, but also it could just be what's going on inside your body. Is your immune system working extra hard and requiring more calories because it's trying to fight off a virus?
Yeah.
Or are you on your period and needing more calories as a female, which, hello, most of us do around a certain time of the
Yeah.
month. So we need to be less fixated on like a magic number. So I actually think an undulating approach is fairly sensible. And certainly part of what was asked here was about training days and non-training days. So I'm depending on where I'm at in terms of training. If I was like peaking, or I don't know, if I was doing like Smolov and squatting,
All the days.
I would just be eating a lot every day.
Yeah.
But if I may be cutting, or I'm at a lower intensity area of training, what I might do is really look at fueling my training days high carb, like we spoke about last week. But then maybe my rest days being in a slight deficit and having less carbs, but maybe having more fats to then restore some of the other health markers around that time.
Yeah.
But what we shouldn't mess with is protein. So generally, whether you're having a high or a low day, you want to keep that protein really kind of uniform.
Yeah. And then just alter the carbs and the fats accordingly on the same kind of percentages.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that. And I think one of the other things they said about or differences between a strength training and a cardio day. Would you have many differences with that? I would say personally it would depend on the amount of cardio. Going for a long walk compared to going for a high intensity cycle or something, or a run or something like that, would be different, and it would be more the duration, I'd say, of that cardio. But what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. So I look after a range of different athletes now with my endurance runners. And this is all to do with like the different energy systems that we tap into when we're training, obviously. But with my like endurance runners, they still do have like a big carbohydrate requirement to keep them running for hours on end, for example. If this is someone who's maybe a strength trainer and they're doing a bit of cardio on their rest days for kind of active recovery, and not necessarily getting their heart rate up, they might want to just do what we were just discussing and keeping it lower carb and having higher fats. If someone's on a fat loss journey, I know there are heated debates about this out there, but actually I'm a fan of a little bit of fasted cardio, because if you do wake up, so for example, the person that asked that question about not eating until 11,
yeah,
if they were coming to me and saying, oh, I need to lose a load of fat and I want to start going out running, what I would say to them is, fine, go do that in the morning before your breakfast, because in the absence of glycogen and carbs and food in your stomach, because you've woken up in a fasted state, if you go out for a run, what your body's going to do is it's going to tap into your fat stores for fuel. So you can use it that way. But
I think that's also quite important, that if somebody was doing that, to make sure that they are doing some sort of resistance training as well,
yes.
To stop the body going, you know what, it's a lot easier to just take these muscles.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think with a strength training and cardio thing, then fasted cardio does tend to have more effect, I think, as far as I understand.
Definitely.
Whereas if it was just doing it on a cardio basis, then I've heard things that often the body will just say it's hard to process fat as a fuel. It's a lot easier to process those proteins, and it's going to just end up depleting your muscles. So I think, I'm not sure how true any of that is, but that's that's what I've heard with it. So
yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. I was, with that sort of case, I was referring to someone who was just like on a fat loss journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of people doing strength training and then like maybe active recovery days in between, I would not be advocating that. It is catabolic. And yes, fat is like the hardest store for your body to tap into for energy. It will go for glycogen availability first, and eventually it will start to kind of feed off of your muscle proteins and things if you're not careful. So no, you're 100% right with what you've said there.
Cool. So moving on, I really like this one because I actually quite enjoy a vegetarian style diet sometimes for a meat eater who loves steak and chicken.
Yes.
Then I also do enjoy quite some veggie meals too. So it'd be nice to hear what you got to say on this, because this lady says, I know this was a lady, so sorry, I wasn't just presuming. I'm a veggie. Whenever I have conversations about the right thing to eat, it always comes back to chicken. What could I eat instead?
Bro, chicken and rice and broccoli.
Chicken and rice.
Okay, so for this individual, obvious response would be dairy sources. I know there are varying degrees of vegetarianism. Some will eat eggs as well, and not. I don't know with this particular lady.
No, she just says veggie, so I'm presuming standard veggie, as in would eat eggs and dairy, because otherwise she'd probably say vegan, or I would have thought. But
so yeah, obviously dairy and eggs are a fantastic source, but touching on the whole vegan thing, that's a really interesting one, and this is something this lady, well, all of us can be looking at, because there are a lot of messages out there as well saying that you can't get all of the essential amino acids from plant sources. You can only get them from meat. So there are 9 essential amino acids, and those are ones that our bodies cannot produce. So we have to get them from dietary intake. Now, with vegan protein sources, there are 2, I think it's just these 2 that I'm aware of, that have all 9 essential amino acids, and that is quinoa and soya.
Okay, yeah.
So obviously, you know the importance, Faye, of getting all of those essential amino acids in there, those complete proteins as they're known. So an individual who's a veggie, I would say look to getting those into your diet as well. But also just in general, and this is something I think that we can all take away from this, meat eaters as well, to get our proteins from a variety of sources. So even if you cannot get a complete protein source on your plate, like a steak or some quinoa, what you can do is protein pairing. So
I
different
was going to mention that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know. Why am I even here? I'm going to hand over to you. Yeah, so obviously different protein sources will have some of the essential amino acids, and what you can do is cleverly pair those. So you might want to put together a meal that has got chickpeas and a grain and some peas, and across those you'll kind of tick all the boxes of the 9 essential amino acids that you're trying to get.
I think my best thing for people to understand that is beans on toast. So you've got, to a certain extent, as in you've got the grains within the toast, and you've got the beans, which is quite a good pairing. It's very simple. It's not got a lot of other nutrients in it, but you know what I mean. It's for people to understand. You've got the kind of grain side of it, and then you've got the beans and legumes and things like that side of it, which have got the different proteins in. So pairing in that way can often create a fuller protein source, even if it isn't completely full.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just getting, again, like, I think I kind of try and get this across with my answer to everything. It's having that abundance of variety in our diets, and if we do that, we are more likely to be ticking all those boxes, right?
And also the fibre from that too.
What's that, sorry?
The fibre from a diet like that is fantastic, which is why I tend to up my fibre intake. I would add things like beans to maybe a meat dish or whatever, or sometimes I'll just have, I think for lunch the other day I just had it was a Mexican bean soup, which was really nice, but the amount of protein in it was huge. For the amount of calories are in it, and the fats and things like that were reasonably low. So for what I wanted for that particular meal, it was perfect. So you can there are quite a lot of things that you can substitute with, and one that I quite like for Italian style cooking is they're a bit expensive, so I don't do it very often, is pine nuts. A pine nut lasagna or something like that, to sprinkle some nuts or seeds in something and chuck in some extra beans in there maybe. So just kind of substituting the meat for things that can for other things.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's upping, like you were talking about in our last session, it's the micronutrients, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
All those little add-ons, like you said, a little sprinkle of seeds, like that, it does go a long way, definitely. And I know, yes, some nuts and seeds, they may be expensive to buy, but things like tinned beans actually are fairly cheap, and quite often you hear people when they get into sports and trying to have a higher protein diet, they're always going, oh, it's so expensive though. And they don't realize that actually you can buy a tin of black beans for like 29p.
Yeah, exactly.
And get a really good amount of nutrition. And
this, I'll digress slightly with that one as well. That when the whole healthy eating's expensive thing, things like frozen vegetables and frozen berries, you don't always have to have fresh. Frozen berries are the main thing. Like, to buy a punnet of blueberries or something like that is quite expensive, and they often go off pretty quickly too. But to get some frozen ones that you can keep in your freezer, and if you don't want to have frozen berries within your yogurt or within your whatever you're having it with, I tend to get them out and put them in a pot in the fridge the night before, because I don't like the frozenness in my food. But put them in a pot the night before, so they're in the fridge, they're defrosted. Once they're defrosted as well, it's that kind of motivation that you are going to eat those, and it's that planning ahead. But it doesn't have to be expensive. There are other options around there. It doesn't always have to be fresh from the from the fresh section as such. There are alternatives.
Frozen veg quite often retains its nutrients because it's kind of flash frozen. The harvesting. So I mean, and I always have that. It's that preparedness as well that I like about that. So I always have a freezer full of loads of frozen veggies.
Yeah.
So it's just there. There's no excuse, you know, get it in.
I often just grab a handful of frozen like mixed veg and just chuck it into whatever I'm cooking. So it might be a bolognese, or it might be just a, you know, a stir fry or something, like anything. I'm like, oh, extra veggies, there you go, chuck them in.
Yeah.
You know, the kids don't notice them as much if they're like that too, which does help.
Oh, eating veg.
Okay, so our final question, and this is actually one I asked, just because I wanted to discuss it, really. What are your thoughts on supplements?
Okay, so
A big can of worms I've just opened there, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to prepare myself for this one. Yeah, so there's a few things, and actually, so I don't forget and get too chatterboxy, I have written a little list of like the basics that I'm going to go through for people. But just actually as a little continuation on from what we were just talking about, I think a lot of people are quick to ask about supplements and kind of treat them as a band-aid fix for other things, but they are supplementary. Now, a lot of the time people will say, I can't afford to buy organic vegetables, for example. And I, hand on heart, do completely sympathise with that. I'm a single parent and have gone through times where I've been on like a really tight budget, and I've gone, oh my goodness, those organic vegetables cost 3 times more than like the regular stuff. But if you look in comparison to how much supplements can cost, you do have to weigh up where you're putting your money. Now, it is scientifically proven that organic vegetables do contain more nutrients than mass-produced, mass-farmed, pesticide-ridden fruits and veg do. So you could look at sort of altering little things with what you're doing already with your normal nutrition. And if you want to start to try to get some organic veg, what I would say is focusing on getting anything that you eat the skin of, because that's what's affected mainly by like the pesticides that are sprayed on things.
Yeah.
So do look at your diet, do eat that variety for sure. Don't just go, I'm going to eat potatoes all day and then take some supplements. Get the veg in. But yeah, even with what's considered a healthy diet, a lot of us are deficient in things these days just because of how food is farmed.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider is some of us can eat vegetables all day long. And speaking from personal experience, I know as well with certain health conditions, I struggle to actually absorb some of the nutrients from what I eat, which is something that needs to be looked at on an individual basis. You could be going, oh, but I'm eating a bag of spinach every day and I'm still tired. And I would be speaking to this person going, well, you're not absorbing what you're eating then.
Yeah.
There are some issues there. Which leads me on to the first one, which is iron. And I would like to raise that because, especially in the realm of sports, athletes do have a higher iron turnover than sedentary individuals, just because of the load that we put on our bodies with our exercise. Yeah. Now, there are good iron tonics out there that can be taken with complex B vitamins and things to increase the hemoglobin level. But if you want to kind of maximize what you're doing already within your diet, and perhaps you're having your iron-rich steak, your spinach, or your greens, actually pairing your iron with vitamin C.
To help with the absorption.
Yeah. So vitamin C increases the absorption capacity of iron. So I always tell my clients to try and get reds and greens on their plate. Really easy thing to remember. Yeah. If you're having some spinach, have some tomatoes with it as well. Yeah. Done. And it's going to help.
That's my breakfast omelette, that.
Perfect. Yeah, what a way to start the day. That's yeah.
I think with that as well, calcium is an interesting one. And I only know this because I like constantly deficient in calcium. It doesn't matter how much of it I eat. It's not a vitamin D deficiency, because I've had it actually tested, at the doctors with numerous blood tests. But calcium, people think about bones, whereas calcium is actually used in muscle contractions. And the storage is just in the bones. Your blood calcium levels are very important, and your body will do anything to maintain them, including eat your skeleton. To say that's a simple way of putting it, but it will. That's how vital your blood calcium levels are. So for somebody that competes in strength sports or does a lot of exercise, you got to think about those muscle contractions. Every time you contract your muscles, you are using up calcium. I'm very lucky that my bone density hasn't been affected, because I found out early enough that I can supplement it. But even supplementing it sometimes can be a bit futile when you don't absorb it very, very well. And again, things like that, the vitamin C to help absorption, and extra vitamin D supplements to aid the absorption. Even though there isn't a deficiency in that, having more of it is always a good thing when the other one is depleted.
Definitely, and vitamin D is very crucial in terms of the absorption of calcium. And we should be getting a lot of that from natural daylight, which again is why it's so important for us to try and get outside. Even, first thing in the morning, if I'm having a coffee, I'll try and stand out in the garden. In natural
light. During the summer more. I like to sit on the doorstep in my back garden because the sun's on it in the mornings, and it's lovely. Or just sit on the picnic bench outside in the morning in the summer. Not so much now. It was chucking it down this morning.
It is hard.
And my neighbours might think I've lost the plot completely.
If they haven't already.
There's that.
So even like on days like today, it was quite rainy. I sat and had my breakfast by the window. I'm just trying to get that exposure up.
And just things like that are good for health, like daily walks. Something that is from lockdown has become popular anyway. But keeping those going on. I mean, I have a big furry thing that ensures that there are daily walks, because it gets annoying if I don't. Which is, it's a good thing. But people that don't have dogs, it's still getting maybe that lunchtime walk rather than sitting at the desk or sitting in the cafe or whatever, can really help with those kind of things.
Absolutely, 100%. And also, again, do research into what you can be getting into just the foods you're eating in terms of kind of upping those nutrients. So for vitamin D, egg yolks, fatty fish, mushrooms are very rich in vitamin D. So there's always things that we can do ourselves without necessarily spending extra money out of our weekly shopping budget, just to enhance what we're doing.
Also, I think sometimes if you are like feeling overly tired and not recovering and not knowing why, actually going and getting the blood test and getting that checked out might be a good idea, because I wouldn't have known that I was, I would have, from the little that I know, assumed that I had an iron deficiency because of the way I was feeling. But then they say, no, your iron levels are fine, your calcium levels are the problem. And so actually finding out what it is you need to supplement, rather than just supplementing everything, get the things that your body is actually asking for, and not spending money unnecessarily, really.
That's it, because supplements are expensive. They do cost money, so you want to be sure that you're not just throwing money down the drain. And
as far as things like protein shakes go, and those kind of supplements, the ones that are very mainstream within the fitness industry, what are your thoughts on those?
I could.
Sorry, I had to ask.
Could I just mention one more just general health supplement, and then like go into the sports ones, because I was going to sort of go into
that's cool.
Is that okay?
So
the only other thing I was just going to mention, because I think it's very important, is magnesium, and most of us are deficient in that. Because it is essential we get that from dietary sources. But again, the way that food is mass produced and farmed means that what we're eating generally is quite low in magnesium. But that's really important as well for the production of protein, bone formation, DNA formation, cell repair,
Mm.
nerve function, muscle function, and also just sleep quality, stress and anxiety levels. So that's a really good one. And I think for people with an active lifestyle that maybe are looking at their bone and their muscular health, magnesium's a very important one. And then we'll talk about
but before we go on, so what food sources would you say are the best for magnesium if you're looking at food sources as well as supplementing?
Oh, okay. So food sources for magnesium, leafy greens are fantastic as well. My favourite source is dark chocolate. So dark chocolate is really dense in magnesium. Get like a really good quality 85-90% cocoa, and that's a really good source.
I like grating it and putting it on cereal or yogurt and stuff like that, and a tiny bit goes so far when you grate it. It's amazing.
Yeah. What's really good about magnesium as well, for any ladies that do suffer with PMS symptoms, magnesium can definitely help with that.
So the myth of craving chocolate when you're on your period isn't a myth.
It's not a myth. No, it isn't. Magnesium helps to regulate serotonin. So actually, yeah, eat chocolate on your period. Just try and make it like
make it dark chocolate and good, decent quantity, not too much.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so go on then. Let's move on to the sports supplements.
Sorry. Yeah. So I'm a fan of whey. It is a kind of a waste product of the dairy industry, but it is highly bioavailable. It's easy to have on the go. It's great for upping protein. So quite often I'll have a yogurt and I might stir in a scoop of protein in with it to up that. And it's fast absorbing. So actually as a post-training source of protein, just to kind of get that muscle protein synthesis and that repair and recovery happening quickly. Love it. Whey protein, all for it.
Good. And again, like going back to that vegetarian side, if people are okay to have whey, there are other sources of protein powders and things. You can get soy protein and things like that, can't you? But simple whey protein, if that is within what you are able to eat, can be a good way of getting the protein up too.
Yeah, definitely. And then the other one I think it's worth mentioning is creatine.
Yes.
That is unanimously agreed by everyone across the board that it's beneficial.
Yes.
It's
one of the only things that is, as far as that side of things go, that has actually been proven to work.
It's safe, it's tested. Everyone agrees that it helps with building strength and muscle. So,
again, though, for a certain type of athlete, it's not necessarily in something that an endurance athlete would need, because they don't use their creatine phosphate system very often. However, a strength athlete or somebody that is doing sports that are more kind of stop-start, things like football, rugby, even things like tennis, I suppose, or anything that is more of an interval kind of thing. From what I understand, it's been proven to be a bit more beneficial in those areas, and strength sports, obviously.
Yeah, certainly, because we're thinking about the maximal intensity with those things, aren't we? And the ability to recover from those, so that you could then, go and train those muscles again. What's good about that is with creatine, it's known to help with boosting the proteins that create those new muscle fibers, which is why it is such a favourite for strength athletes and bodybuilders. But what is really interesting, Faye, and I don't know if you would have come across this yourself with any of the reading and the research that you've done, there are a lot of medical studies now suggesting that creatine even can help with brain function.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, and in some cases, doctors, GPs have been known to prescribe it to patients with early onset Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Interesting.
Because there are other benefits. And the more that's being discovered about creatine, the more it's kind of becoming apparent that actually the general public can benefit from taking it in one way or another.
Okay, that is very interesting. I haven't come across that, but I'm definitely going to go and make sure I get my creatine in.
Yeah,
To keep the brain going a little bit longer before I go completely mad.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then,
fantastic.
so there was just one more supplement that I think we needed to discuss today,
Go on then.
because this like gets everyone riled up. BCAAs.
Okay, BCAAs. There's very mixed views on BCAAs, isn't there?
Yeah, big mixed views on that. You drink BCAAs?
I do.
Right?
Personally, I quite like BCAAs. I don't know if they're working or not, or doing what I want them to do, but I take them anyway, because if there's a chance they might, then why not? And I think they taste nice.
Yeah. Sometimes as an athlete as well, it's just like, well, if it's going to give me that extra 1%, it's worth the 1%.
Yeah, exactly.
And then for some people, and then for some people, if they actually just don't like drinking water and they quite enjoy the taste of a BCAA, it's going to get their hydration up.
Yeah.
Then great. But it is hotly contested, and a lot of people will say, well, you don't need a BCAA because you are getting those essential branch chain amino acids from your dietary intake with the foods that you eat. Now, BCAAs generally contain 3 particular amino acids: isoleucine, valine, and leucine. Now, leucine is the one that diminishes in exercise.
Right, yeah.
And that's the one that is important that we kind of replace it to stimulate that protein synthesis. What I like to do, I mean, I sip on BCAAs as well. I think, like, a bit like you, why not? You know, I quite enjoy them while I'm training. I really like using them as an insurance policy for myself or my clients if in a deficit. Because you do run the risk of kind of going into a catabolic state when you are in a deficit. And I just think if you're sipping on something like that, that's just kind of giving you those extra doses of amino acids throughout the day, I think, you know, that's going to help going some way.
It's probably not going to hurt, is it? So
it's not. No,
it's not going to hurt. And if it is, it's got that chance of it being a benefit, and you're getting those bits in that are getting depleted, then all good. And they're not expensive, really. There's no point in spending a huge amount of money on ones that say that they are going to make you be able to walk on water or whatever. It's just the simple, you know, BCAAs, a flavour you like is the best one. You know, well, which one shall I have? The one you like, you know.
Yeah.
Apparently, I go orange one that apparently everyone else hates, but you know, my kids.
I have a mojito. I have a mojito flavoured one.
Oh, very nice. I bet that's
nice. Literally happy hour at the bar.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
But some of my clients as well find that it does help with mental focus throughout training and endurance. And I think what also you should look at with the BCAAs that you're taking is usually they're combined with vitamin C, a bit of caffeine, and again, a bit of magnesium. So actually they might help with a little bit of performance. You might be able to get a little bit of an extra push out of your session. And if they do sort of help with brain function and giving you that laser focus to endure to the end of a session, I'm all for it.
Because again, supplements, we haven't even touched on caffeine, but caffeine is also proven to help with performance, which is why things like pre-workouts are so popular. However, and some of the other crap that they put in them, that's my opinion on them anyway. But I would prefer just to have caffeine, and in the form of, if it is within your BCAA, or I love a cup of coffee before training, especially if it's cold. But the caffeine on its own, or even if you're in an event and you don't want to be drinking or whatever, a caffeine tablet can help, but it can cause a bit of dehydration too, so you should keep your liquids up with that. So.
Did you say cold coffee?
No, not cold coffee. That's disgusting.
Okay, good. I'm glad
A
we
cup of
clarified.
coffee. I said a cup of coffee.
Oh, okay. I'm glad we
No, I
clarified.
don't drink cold coffee or frappes or anything gross like that.
So interestingly though, you saying about like different ways of having it and like being cautious about how you do it around training. One of my favorite things to do is to stir a teaspoon of instant coffee into my pre-training protes.
Okay.
Because I've got like less fluid sloshing around in my stomach
Yeah.
before I go into a squat session, but I've got the caffeine and the nice flavour in my porridge.
Oh, okay. Well, if it tastes nice, then that, yeah, if you like that kind of thing. But no, I'm not. I'm very much a sweet coffee person. I like it to be not too strong and quite sweet and creamy, and you know.
Latte. You're a latte girl.
I'm definitely a latte girl rather than espresso. Yeah. Right then, I think we have covered all of the questions, and so again, thank you so much for coming and talking to me. That was brilliant. I think we covered loads today, and I've just had an idea for another one that we might have to discuss. But we will see about that. So we'll keep everyone poised on that note. So thank you very much for coming.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks so much for having me again, Faye.
No worries. Take care.